House Committee on Appropriations will come to order. Will the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Whitwer.
Here.
Representatives O'Neill.
Present.
Brixey. Hood. Braybeck. Morris. Puri. Steckloff. Weiss. Martis. McKinney.
Here.
Menser. Morgan. Price. Skaggs. Snyder. Wilson. Leitner. Bolin. Green. Slaw. Beeson. Horton. Fink. Cavett.
Present.
DeBoer. Kuhn. Schutte.
Here.
Steele. Madam Chair, you have 28 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Rep. O'Neill moves to approve the minutes from the March 8th meeting. There being no objection, the minutes are approved. Representative Leitner moves to excuse absent members. Without objection, the absent members will be excused from today's meeting. Today, we welcome several guests to discuss the proposed new battery manufacturing facilities near Big Rapids in Mecosta County. We have with us today Randy Thalen, President and CEO of the Right Place, an economic development organization that seeks business development in the greater Grand Rapids area. On Zoom with us today, we have Chuck Thalen, Vice President of North American Operations at Goshen, the company that would own and operate the project. Also in person today is Jim Chapman, the supervisor of Green Township, the township that is part of the development where this will be located. Last, we have Ferris State University President Bill Pink, who supports the project and has an interest in it given the proximity to his university. Last session, the legislature appropriated money into the SOAR fund with this specific development in mind. The project was then approved by the Michigan Strategic Fund Board at their meeting on October 5th, 2022. However, the project still needs to be approved by both appropriation committees with a legislative transfer. Of the $2.3 billion investment in Mecosta County proposed by Goshen, $175 million would be state incentives from the SOAR program. Of that $175 million, $125 million is proposed to come from the Critical Industry Program, and $50 million would come from the Strategic Site Readiness Program. Before this committee gives final sign-off to these incentives, I thought it would be beneficial for us to get a comprehensive overview of the plan and what things will look like on the ground up there. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Randy Thalen and everyone that would like to come up to the front. Members, I'll ask that you hold any questions until the end of the presentation. Thank you.
There we go. We'll try that. Good morning, everybody. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity. Everybody on the committee, thank you as well. We have an exciting opportunity in front of us today that we want to cover in great detail. We'll present. You'll hear from several presenters before we take questions. I want to address one topic out of the gate. You may have heard my last name is Thalen. I lead the Right Place. Chuck Thalen leads Goshen's North American efforts. When the first time we met, we had to decide if we were, or understand if we were related or not. We couldn't determine that ourselves. I had to call my mother. Turns out we're distant cousins. I assure you there's no conflict, there's no financial arrangement, there's no connection, just it's a fluke of the way the world works sometimes. But it's been a pleasure to work with him over the last several months. As Chair Whitwer said, I lead the Right Place, which is a regional economic development organization that has been leading the economic development efforts in Greater Grand Rapids for nearly 40 years now. We serve 8 counties across West Michigan: Mason, Montcalm, Mecosta, Ionia, Oceana, Newaygo, Lake, and Kent. Our organization has grown over the years to serve some of the more rural counties across West Michigan, providing that backbone of support to them with local leadership. The leader of the local effort, of Mecosta County's effort, is here with us today, Kelly Wazik. This has been an interesting project. It represents a tremendous opportunity. I'll tell you, across the 40 years of the Right Place history, my 25 years of working in economic development, we've never seen a moment like this in the U.S. It's a confluence of factors that are driving a wave of extraordinary industrial projects, the likes of which I've never seen. And I think there's 2 sort of broad reasons why it's occurring. One, you have the sort of post-COVID moment where companies have determined and understood that their supply chains maybe were stretched too thin. So the idea of onshoring has certainly taken root, particularly in the chips industry, where we see massive, massive investments taking place across the country, including several projects that we've competed for here in Michigan. The other major wave that's causing this industrial sort of revolution is the automotive transformation from the internal combustion engine to the electric vehicle. The assembly plants that come with that, the battery plants that come with that have triggered another wave of massive investments, again, the likes of which we've never seen. And especially so here in Michigan, we have not historically competed for projects of this scale. And so this is a rare moment for us to see this kind of opportunity. It's especially a rare moment for us to be able to compete for them and to see them consider a corner of the state, a northwest portion of the state that hasn't seen projects like this, frankly, ever. It's a really exciting opportunity for us to see a path to really boost the economy in an area that's been in decline, that's forecasted to be in decline. And for us to turn that around as a state, for the region to turn it around, it's a project of this scale and an opportunity that really excites us. The project at a high level from a jobs and investment standpoint is 2,350 new jobs, $2.3 billion of private investment. The county supervisor, county administrator, Paul Bullock, has estimated this investment is about 75% of the current value of the county. So in terms of increased local tax base, it's substantial. Yes, there's a Renaissance zone that'll impact the project for a number of years, but the bond issue that the school has will get paid off almost twice as fast as you would expect. The ancillary developments that will occur with a project of this nature will cause additional property tax gains locally. We've had 42 different companies call us. I had a supplier in our office just yesterday actually, looking for opportunities. They happen to be based out of Northeast Michigan. There are opportunities that are going to drive the ancillary spinoff in tax base that comes with a project of this nature. The most important number I think on this screen though is $45,000. That is the proposed average starting wage of these positions, not inclusive of benefits of course. The average household income in Mecosta County today is $48,000 and change. Household income often includes two wage earners. This is the starting wage for one person. You can imagine over time as they build their experience, as they build their expertise, you can imagine those jobs, the average wage within this company continuing to climb, and one person will sort of dwarf the household income that's currently achieved up there. It's a tremendous opportunity. When the story first broke last fall, the Detroit News ran an article, sort of a man on the street or a woman on the street sort of article interviewing people as they walked the main street of Big Rapids, and they interviewed one woman who currently works in the area making $11 an hour. This is game-changing money for people like her and others who are currently finding themselves in a bit of an underemployment situation. To give it a sense of scale, you can see here, I know you're all state reps, and we all took geography, but there's where Big Rapids is in northwest Michigan. But more importantly, the map on the right, you'll see the project site outlined. It's roughly 600 acres. The airport is immediately south of that blue line. You see it noted there. Ferris State University is on the south end of the city of Big Rapids. You can see the proximate location to the city population itself, and the freeway interchange being right there. This is an area that had been planned for industrial for some time, about 25 years. The infrastructure was there, the access to the freeway was there, relatively close proximity to the seaport in Muskegon and truck to rail transfer stations closer to Grand Rapids. So it checks a lot of boxes at a time when it's hard to find major industrial sites. This area offered that opportunity. That gives you a little bit of a background of the project from our perspective at the right place. I know you want to hear more from Chuck Thalen at Goshen, and I'd like to turn it over to him if it's okay. And Chuck, I should say, I'll let Chuck explain, but he's been on vacation, so he's going to be joining us via Zoom. And Chuck, I will run the slide deck for you. Just tell me when.
Okay, thank you very much. I might add it's a working vacation. Actually, I'm down in Orlando area getting ready for the International Battery Conference is happening this next week. So thanks for that introduction, Randy. Yes, I do believe we are distant cousins, but clearly we don't look alike. Again, my name is Chuck Thalen. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to talk to you today. I wish I could be there in person, but again, my sincere apologies that I cannot. I'd like to show you today the advantageous nature of what we're looking for right now. We have our company, which is Goshen. I've been employed by Goshen after 35 years in the automotive industry. I made the change to Goshen because I saw this company as a very strong up-and-coming lithium-ion battery company. And I'll show you some of those reasons why here in a couple seconds. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Go ahead, next slide. Some of the topics we like to talk about are what is really our footprint globally. We are an international company. I'd like to outline how that looks. What is our maturation? Where did we come from? Where are we going? our ownership and diversification. I'd like to talk about our corporate values and our corporate citizenry. A little bit about our value chain, because as Randy identified, one thing that we have learned, and I'm certain there's going to be many case studies for college students probably at Ferris to investigate and understand how things happen during COVID. And one of those things, like Randy indicated, is the value chain is proven to be absolutely critical for products to get through. Market segments, who do we support? And then the question everybody asks me, Big Rapids, why would we go to Big Rapids? Next slide, please. So as you see here, this is kind of a map of the globe as we work within. The company is present in currently Vietnam, Thailand, India, the United States. We're already in the United States, as a matter of fact, and Germany. We're expanding into other areas, including Argentina, Indonesia, but that's coming forward. As mentioned, we are a current company. This is not a startup. We have over 12,000 people employed. I think now that's roughly 14,000. We have well over 2,500 R&D talent. So of that, if you look at the proportion, you can see we are an innovation company. We're not just a manufacturer. We like to come up with the right way to do things, not just the product, but also process. We have 11 production bases, and we're now building a couple more in the United States, so that'll increase considerably. In R&D centers, we have around the world, including 2 in the United States. You can see one off to the left, that's at Fremont, California. That was incorporated in California. That's our first incorporation in the United States back, I believe, in 2015. I'll go through that a little bit. We do R&D for battery management systems. So the electronics controls to make sure that the battery is charged and discharged at a safe rate. And then we also have R&D that's currently near Cleveland, Ohio. That is an BASF site. And that is where we do an awful lot of electrolyte, anode, and cathode development. So we have a full team there working on those topics, which are 3 of the 4 major components of the battery. And as you see, the manufacturing symbol right over the state of Michigan, we're hoping to put in our materials manufacturing. I'll explain a little bit more what the materials means. Our jobs, as Randy indicated, we're roughly 2,350. If everything goes well, we hope to, by the mid to end of Q2, so in the April, May, June timeframe, start breaking ground. Start of production, we expect to have this facility built and operational by Q2 2025. Now, after that is done, obviously we have to go through qualification testing. So I don't know if we'll be in full production yet, but we will have production product at that time. And the goal is we will feed a minimum of 40 gigawatt hour production. We are putting other manufacturing locations throughout the US, which I'm not at liberty to say yet where those are, but those are for the finished goods assembly. So again, this plant in Big Rapids, Michigan will be for the materials components. And I'll go through that a little bit more in a second. Next slide, please. So where did we come from? Where are we going? If you look at this, we were founded roughly 20 years ago by an innovative entrepreneur by the name of Shen Li. He was a very successful real estate developer, and he decided he wanted to enter the technology market and began this company. And began it with very good successes right away. If you see the commercial e-bus route that was up in Europe. Matter of fact, if you are in Amsterdam airport and you might get shuttled from the terminal to your plane on those e-buses, likely that's our battery pack in that product. We also had the first 585 batch of electric cars in China in 2011. And then once the success was realized, the company went from private to public. So that public listing happened in the Shenzhen Stock Exchange in 2015. And at the same time, we were shipping our first energy storage systems, or ESS, not only to Asia's, but also into United States. Matter of fact, there's a station in West Virginia that was, I'll call it our flagship location. In 2020, the Volkswagen Group, through many, many months of discussion, made a strategic investment in the company. They bought a majority. They are now the majority shareholder. So when they purchased 26% of the organization, that was basically from Chairman Lee's own holdings. So that actually put Chairman Lee at a minority holding position. So at this time, it is definitely safe to say the VW Group is our majority shareholder, and our board members reflect that. I'll talk about that in a minute. I was very privileged to be part of the envoy that went over to Switzerland as we had our Swiss Stock Exchange IPO, and they call it a GDR. That was in July of 2022. That was in Zurich, and it was very exciting to ring the bell on that new offering. And then lastly, how do we expand? We move into Big Rapids, Michigan, coming forward with our materials manufacturing plant, and then subsequently our cell manufacturing. One thing down the takeaway box on the bottom, if you think about it during COVID-19, I'd just like to make mention that throughout all the troubling times, a lot of companies downsized, a lot of companies, their employees took salary reductions and so on. I'd just like to mention, at no point in no time, in no location did any Goshen employee get laid off or was their pay reduced. As a matter of fact, we probably even worked harder as we went to the work from home structure, and it turned out a lot of very good results in those 2.5 years of that time period. So it's a testament to the company's dedication to their employees. Next slide. So board of directors, as I mentioned, since the VW team purchased 26%, and after the SIX exchange, the Switzerland Stock Exchange offer, that is now reduced to roughly 24.1 because now we have a lot more shareholders in the European sector. So who runs Goshen? The board of directors is a majority of Germans. We also have Chinese citizens and American citizens. Matter of fact, 2 of our board members are American citizens that both got their doctorates from Wayne State University. So we have a little connection there with Michigan. The CEO and chairman is Shen Li, as I mentioned, entrepreneur, innovator, is still managing the company as the chairman of the board. And the operations, day-to-day operations, are still largely Chinese because they're the ones that invented the product and the process. But now a lot of our business direction is coming from our board, which is majority of German descent. I already mentioned the Switzerland Stock Exchange, and I think when we look at the overall content of people working in North America, we do have multilingual speakers. We also have many Americans, and that's what you're going to see in this plant in Big Rapids. We hope to staff this, I'm going to say at least 95% local talent. We will have to have some multilingual speakers as well. Next slide. So corporate values. I just wanted to bring this up because it may be contradictory to some of the rhetoric you might hear in the geopolitical mindset that we have today. Our company, being a publicly held company with a board that is highly diverse, we continuously strive to make contributions to society. And that's putting your money where your mouth is. And that's going to be the next slide. I'll show you a few topics on that. Chairman Lee is very dedicated to make sure that the ecology of Earth is the same way as it is when we got here. He is very steadfast in making sure that when we do put in new facilities, we do things such as water pretreatment stations so we don't pollute the water table. We're doing things such as demanding as much renewable resources as possible for our energy consumption. We consume an awful lot of energy. And you see Consumers Power is a very large partner of ours, in large part because they can satisfy 100% of our energy needs with solar, wind, and other renewable energy sources. So when you look at an overall presence, the mindset of the company is truly international, and it is truly in sync with Mother Earth. Next slide, please. So this is where we put our money where our mouth is. During the times of COVID and everybody's felt those challenges, we were making donations. So we made a donation of $1 million to support the epidemic prevention and control. We've also made significant donations donating mobility scooters to disabled and those that just couldn't get to work or couldn't get out of their cities, whatever it might be. Yes, these actions happen in China, but this is exactly the type of corporate citizenship you can expect from us here in the great state of Michigan. Next slide. So what do we make? We make battery cells and battery cell systems, but that's what a lot of people do. What differentiates Goshen is we're very vertically integrated. So we own our own mines for raw materials. We build our own and refine our own battery materials. So once you pull lithium out of the ground, you have to go through significant refinement to get that lithium salt into a 99% pure industrial grade lithium. We have all our own refineries and we have our own patents for those processes as well. So really the second tab here, the battery materials, is what we're going to focus on in Big Rapids. There are 4 major components that go into a lithium ion battery. cathode and anode. Those are kind of the electricity carrying components. And then we have the separator and the electrolyte. The cathode and anode constitute roughly 55 to 60% of the cost of the battery. The separator will be coming. I'm working with some Michigan partners right now to bring in a separator, and we're talking about expansion for electrolyte into this site. That is not a done deal yet, but we are discussing how that could play into the overall system. And then clearly those materials get shipped into our cell manufacturing, where the battery cell themselves are produced, and those battery cells then go into battery systems, which will be modules, packs, racks, depending on what segment of our customers are going to use these. Maybe to note, you'll see the acronyms LFP and NCM. LFP is our specialty. That stands for lithium ferrous phosphate or lithium iron phosphate. Those battery cells are very safe. So when you hear about any battery cell going thermal, very good chance that's an NCM, because the NCM battery is very high energy density. And anytime you pack that much energy into anything, you are accepting a risk level that you have to mitigate. So we do LFP primarily. We do supply the NCM battery cells to some customers that want them, but a majority of our products are LFP. And then the last block, which is very important to us and it should be important to everybody, is the recycling. One little thing a lot of people don't know, 99.9% of a lithium battery can be recycled. So whether it's end of life or throughout the production process, recycling is a key characteristic of lithium ion batteries. You don't want to be dumping this material into landfills. And it's a good thing, unlike a lead acid battery, you can recover a very large portion of this. We do our own recycling in the Asias. We do not recycle currently in our location in Göttingen, Germany, which is now a European manufacturing center of expertise. But the recycling that we would be looking at in North America to start with would be using third parties. And when you look at the amount of batteries and activity going on all throughout the United States, I do expect you're going to see a recycling center pop up in Michigan. There's already one going into Georgia. There's other locations as well. But recycling is becoming a very big industry because it's the right thing to do. Next slide, please. So who do we supply? A good question. Passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles. As I mentioned, we're already in both of those. Specialty vehicles, we're in delivery vehicles. Light vehicles, scooters. We have a joint venture with Tata in India, where we supply a lot of their, it's called a swap out battery for their electric scooters, get them around town. And then last but not least, energy storage systems. So when you're working on renewable energy creation, sometimes it's only during the day and sometimes it's only when it's windy out. So how do you store that energy to be ready for consumption when necessary? So our ESS systems are already being shipped to the United States. We're currently roughly 40% of our book business is with ESS. So we are working with large companies. I'm not at liberty to say who they are right now, but we're currently supplying multiple companies in the United States, including one company that came up with a very innovative portable generator replacement, and they're doing quite well. So very good company to partner with. But overall, the ESS is a large player. Some of our competitors don't see that as much as we do, but our ESS business really not only is profitable, but also helps our renewable resource push that we have for not only our own usage, but everybody's usage. Next slide. Okay, here's the big question everybody asks me. And my first smart aleck answer is, why not Big Rapids? But here's why. When we started looking where we should go, we started investigating economic development consortiums around the United States. I've looked at multiple states, including 44 potential greenfield sites that were identified, that were reviewed at least on paper and via Zoom at that time because we were still getting over COVID. Of those 44 sites, what we've learned was it doesn't lend itself well for a battery material manufacturing to buy a current, maybe vacated site somewhere, because our height requirements are the buildings have to be roughly 70 feet tall. And most of your buildings are roughly 50 feet tall. So that kind of put us to a position where we had to look really at greenfield sites. So we identified 44 of them. When you look at all the things that go into picking a site, we were able to narrow that down to 14 potential sites. I personally visited all those sites, did walkarounds, talked to the power companies, talked to the rail companies, trucking companies, and obviously the local government agencies to come down to 3 potential sites. These 3 sites were all very, very highly qualified. We chose Big Rapids, and there's multiple reasons for that. One is because of our very strong relationship with Ferris State University. When we looked at many universities around the country that would help us with our training, they all had, I'll say, capabilities in one area, maybe not all areas. But what we saw with Ferris State is they have technology programs that are unlike anything we've seen in the country. They have technology programs that can do a 6-month, a 1-year, a 2-year, a 4-year degree. And those I'll say shorter term training sessions get our people ready for the plant. These jobs that go into this plant are not, I'll say, putting a bolt into a glove box. These are very highly technical jobs where the operators will be operating closed loop control machines. They're not just material handlers, if you will. Yes, we have automation, and we have to have highly trained individuals to maintain that automation. So Ferris State brings something to the table that's a very good competitive advantage for the state of Michigan. And then clearly we have Grand Valley State, we have the Michigan Community College, we have the Rest Community College. Actually, I taught at Lansing Community College for a few years, so we'd like to bring them in as well. But our relationship with our education institutions are key. Michigan Works will be doing all of our recruiting for us. So we will be utilizing localized labor, localized recruiters, and they will bring potential employees to us and we'll sort through them. And the last but not least, Consumers Energy. Consumers Energy is a big partner because of their capability to supply 100% sustainable energy. Not a lot of states can do that. Not a lot of power companies can do that. So they don't have all those assets activated quite yet, but they will be employing them, and we're working through our contract agreements as to how to use that energy and how those assets get paid down over time. One other special thanks I'd like to give to the Right Place for putting an awful lot of effort into making this work. MEDC, the Mecosta County Development Commission, Green Charter Township have been very, very collaborative with us. Mecosta County, very collaborative. City of Big Rapids. As a matter of fact, Green, Mecosta, and Big Rapids all passed resolutions with 100% unanimous votes to go forward with this project. So we're very pleased to see that. And then the Big Rapids Township, we are working to have further collaboration with Big Rapids Township. I think we have a couple of roadblocks you may have read about, and we're working through those. I'm confident and hopeful that we will get those worked out, and the Big Rapids Township will have the same relationship that we have with the other 3 entities. And last but not least, this slide, this has got way too much information. So this is really kind of showing what we're doing for jobs year over year and investment year over year. I'd like to ask you to ignore the new construction and machinery and equipment. This is just a placeholder. This is not exact, but the total yearly spending reaches roughly $2.35 billion. And then the overall jobs created are roughly 2,350. So last slide is just a big thank you to everybody. And if we want to go to questions and answers, I have a very skilled support staff with Dr. Pink and the rest of our partners to hopefully answer all of your questions.
If you like, we can continue quickly with Dr. Pink from Ferris State University and then Jim Chapman, and then open up for questions.
That'd be great.
Okay, so Dr. Pink, I believe, is online.
Yes. Good morning to all of the committee members. Madam Chair, it's an honor to be able to share some time with you. I'll be brief because I want to make sure we're leaving time for questions. As the president here at Ferris State University, I just need to say thank you to each of you for the work you do and for the support that you give this great institution. I often talk about the importance of being relevant and responsive as a university. And when it comes to being relevant and responsive, the recent announcements that have been made over the last several months of so many of the big major car makers moving toward ceasing and slowing down their construction, their manufacturing of gas-powered IBS engines, internal combustion engines. To see that happen as a university, that was a signpost for us. And knowing how Ferris State and knowing the reputation that this great institution has when it comes to preparing a workforce When it comes to preparing workforce for the state of Michigan in this region, it is imperative. I wouldn't be doing my job, friends, if we weren't looking at how Ferris State needs to be responsive to that message that so many of our major car manufacturers have made in terms of their production of EV powered vehicles. So what we have done is in our work now with the MEDC also recognizing our institution in ways of how we do this work of preparing the workforce for the great state of Michigan. One of those things that they have done is to help and award us a $600,000+ grant that is geared toward, and that's annual, hopefully over about 3 to 4 years, amount to somewhere over $3 million by the time we finish this work with them. But what those grant dollars do is that allows us, and that's a statement from the MEDC of the faith that it puts in Ferris State University to help in not only developing the workforce when it comes to this sector, but also part of those dollars will be going toward an applied research facility, the Center for Applied Research of Battery Production, so that we can not only prepare and will not only prepare workforce for this sector, but also provide some of the applied research needed to learn more about this work. So when we see something, a company like Goshen coming into our region, coming into not our backyard, coming into our front yard, saying that this is the kind of investment they want to make, it makes sense for the university to partner and be a collaboration with whoever comes in. When we see companies like this that come in and say, here's what we want to do for the economic development of our city, of our region, far be it from a university to turn our back and say, yeah, that's great. We have to be responsive and say, how is it that we can not only partner with you, but how can we not only a Goshen, but help this region and help this sector in staying ahead of the curve? I don't like playing catch up with these kind of things, friends. To me, it is important that we are staying as a university, not only with a partner like Goshen that we look forward to working with in this regard, but Goshen gives us the opportunity to be at the forefront of this technology, at the forefront of preparing people for this workforce, so that Ferris State can not only do that work with Goshen, but that as we spread that work and spread those credentials that we will develop in that research, spread that out to some of our community college partners across the state, we then will be that go-to institution that helps in preparing this workforce, because it is the type of work that you want us to do. It's the type of work that our state wants us to do, so that we are indeed doing our side and doing our work in preparing a workforce for a sector that we see growing. We don't want to be behind the curve. We want to stay ahead of the curve in what we do for the state of Michigan. And I believe a partner like Goshen can help keep us in that space as we continue to expand and reach out to other companies who are doing the same thing. We're excited about the opportunity. I wanted to be brief. I wanted to make sure I said in terms of what Ferris State and our part in this, and that is where we're focused, very much focused on this. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to being able to answer any questions for you. Go Bulldogs.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Chapman. I'm the Township Supervisor for Green Charter Township. It does appear I'm the little fish in the big pond. Challenge of speaking before you folks is one thing. Apparently following Dr. Pink is even more of a challenge. You've sat here and you've heard numbers, and numbers are important, okay? And I can give you numbers also. I can give you numbers that tell you that Mecosta County faces, according to 2021, Mecosta County faces a poverty rate of 19.1. The only thing in our region worse is our next door neighbors of Lake County at 19.4. This is a game changer for families, for people in our community, in our area, okay? I had it when we first started really going with this thing and the people were coming to us. I had a young man come to me and said, and he's a skilled laborer, and he told me, he said, you understand, I'm driving 126 miles a day to work. He's driving to the south side of Grand Rapids to find a decent paying job to help raise his children and to support his family. He's driving 126 miles a day. I don't need to tell you what something like this next door to him will do. Now, every one of us is sitting in the back of our minds calculating out the latest gas prices and what he's going to save with gas. Put that aside. You think of this. That is 3 more hours every day with his children. Okay? That is being able to help his kids get ready for school in the morning and get on the bus. That's being home for supper with his kids instead of mom feeding the kids and daddy shows up sometime later. Okay? The core effect of this to families is amazing. I'm lucky. I really am. Because my two children and my 5 grandchildren, who are perfect in every way, live within 20 minutes of me, okay? I have friends whose children live in the Carolinas, in Iowa. They get to see them if they can put the money together to fly out there for Christmas. I have a grandson who's going into automotive as a junior into our local career center. Okay, I want him to be able to find a job in Mecosta County. Now, it might be with a battery plant, it might not. I've seen figures of 2 to 1, 3 to 1 plus of indirect employment that this is going to create. So maybe my son will be able to find a job as an auto mechanic. But my friends who run the pizza shop down the street are going to be able to hire 1 or 2 more employees and watch their job grow and watch those young people learn work ethic by working with Megan and Casey. And I could go on and on, whether it's the party store or the pie hole cake company, so on. What it does to our community, and it's not just here local, this will affect Cedar Springs to Cadillac, this will affect over to Sparta and clear over to Mount Pleasant. What this will do to my people in my community, the opportunities this will provide them with is on a scale that no one has seen in their lifetime, in their parents' or their grandparents' lifetime. And I ask your help to be able to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. Are there any questions from members? Representative Bolin?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. So I read a lot about the controversy between neighboring communities, and I'm just wondering, has MEDC made a recent presentation to do more explaining on the project to cut down on that conflict potential?
The MEDC has not directly come in. We currently have, now I had my township board meeting last night. It was interesting. But I currently have a setup with a panel discussion with area representatives, police, fire, rescue, wastewater, economic, Goshen themselves, Ferris State University has volunteered to be present, some other entities that we're working on, and we're working right now to see that is out there so that all those folks can get the answers that they seek.
Okay. Could I just have one more, please? I have a question about the Ferris. I congratulate Ferris. I know that having spent time on the higher ed budget, what a great job they do, and really being kind of ahead of the curve on the workforce. But I have a question about the $600,000 grant that's being given to Ferris annually. That's annually for how long, and where's the $600,000 coming from? Thank you.
I will happy to answer that, Representative. So those dollars were MEDC grant opportunities. There were several institutions that were awarded dollars. Ferris State happened to be the highest award of those, a couple of community colleges as well. I want to say also another university. What those dollars were they were focused on, there were grant dollars through the MEDC that was focused on workforce and building up as far as sector of EV is concerned. What we did is we proposed to the MEDC, as the other institutions did. We had a proposal that said, here's what we would do if we were funded in this way. The things that we talked about were, and it's also included in the $600,000, and it's hopefully over 4 years. I say hopefully because We're kind of playing it year to year. This first allocation is about little north of $600,000. What it will do is stand up opportunities for us to accelerate our development of certificate and programs that get down the road of electric vehicle and battery production. Also, the development of a center for applied research in battery technology, battery manufacturing. That applied research will, I think, honestly, because had a conversation with someone, one of the national organizations last week, and he said that right now, country, as far as nationally, there aren't many, if any, that are institutions that have started in on the applied research side of EV manufacturing and battery manufacturing. So I see Ferris State as being one of the first to the dance on that one as well with these funding dollars. And so those dollars will go toward us being able to stand up how we do this work, whether it be Goshen or just this sector going forward.
Representative Leitner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question in regards to the project where it mentions sewage treatment stations. So are you building your own, or are you tying into the municipality? Has there been any 425 transfers? What's the status there, I guess? Can you elaborate?
Certainly, I'd be happy to answer that. So our current site layout goes with all of our plants worldwide. We do pre-treatment of water before it goes into any sewage system. Some of the things you look for to make sure there's no toluene, benzene, any kind of an into the water. There are no solid particulates. There's no elements that shouldn't be in the water. And also specifically, it has to be above a pH of 6.5, so it's not acidic. The goal is that our treatment facility will take what water we use, treat it, and then recycle that into using for our cooling systems for our operations. For the water that is not needed for cooling, the rest of it will go into the public and municipality sewage system.
Okay.
We will build the pretreatment ourselves. That'll be our cost.
Okay, so that'll be on site. And
Yes,
then
sir.
you'll
Yes,
tie
ma'am.
into the local municipality for the wastewater, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Steele.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. And I just, kind of more of a comment, and no disrespect to the presentation today, but it would have been nice to have this presentation and one, which was the last presentation that we had, before we voted on the Ford project of $1 billion. And I'm just really kind of concerned moving forward in the state of Michigan that we don't necessarily have really a vision, and we don't really have a lot of diversification with the last three projects all being batteries. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more diversified, and maybe had these presentations, this one and the last one, presented to us and let us know that it was in the pipeline before we voted on the $1 million appropriations for Ford. And I guess my question ends up being, we continue to talk about job creation, and I actually think that we actually have we have a shortage of workers, and I would like to maybe have seen some of this money go into infrastructure to maybe have a better vision for Michigan and to create better schools and those type of things to attract people for these jobs that we keep on creating that we don't have enough workers for. So I guess my question would be, how are we trying to fill these positions for these jobs that you're creating, because we actually have a lack of workers from the top all the way down. So thank you.
Representative, if you don't mind, I'll try answering that last part of your question there about the jobs and the labor shortage. I know the company, Chuck could speak to it, they've done.
Could you turn the mic on, please?
Sorry, I think it's on, it's just too far. So I'll try to answer your question on the labor force availability. I know the company has gone through exhaustive research, that we wouldn't be having this discussion if they didn't have the confidence they can find the people. To Jim's point and my colleague Kelly, the number of people who exit Mecosta County every day for work is about 6,500 people. So part of their analysis, could they retain them? But, you know, I had the opportunity to work in Denver, Colorado before moving back to Michigan 2 years ago. It's one of the fastest growing markets in the country. It's from a talent standpoint and from a job standpoint. They have this flywheel effect that's taking place. And so when companies talk about where they want to locate, where they're considering, they're choosing places that have that growth sort of flywheel effect working. And in Michigan, in many pockets, we don't have that. We've got to find a way to grow at a pace that draws people to our communities, that draws people to Michigan. And growth, begets talent, begets more jobs. We don't have that flywheel effect going. We have to see projects like this to try to trigger some of that activity.
Representative Schutte.
Thank you, Chair Whitwer, for the opportunity to ask questions, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming in front of us today. So I have a couple of questions here. My first is, last year, the chairman of Goshen, he noted the group's investment in Argentina in the context of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is China's Global Infrastructure Influence Initiative. Does Chairman Lee consider this project in Big Rapids to be part of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative?
I can speak to the Argentina conversation. So the issue that we have in the United States is, if you look at all of the battery requirements for all materials to be supplied into this industry, we are currently producing 7% of the raw materials, 7. We're not able to do the mining that is required, and until that matures, you have to bring product from outside. And the way you do that is either you go to the standard, which is the China, Africa locations, or you get creative, look somewhere else. So you look at what's going on down in South America. They have what they call the lithium triangle. Yeah, so Argentina is just one country that has found these massive deposits in the salt flats in the northern part of their country. So what we did is we went and we entered a partnership with Argentina, the government itself, and the companies that they do business with, to help extraction and refining of that material. That was done so that we are not reliant on one location. As I mentioned, we own our own mines in China and in Asia for those applications, but that product's not plentiful enough for the whole world. We're also looking at great opportunities coming out of brine solutions. Specifically, there's a big project in California right now you may have heard of, where they're pulling brine out of the slurry for geothermal heating. So there's a lot of other great opportunities to find the raw materials, but currently, they're just not available locally, so we have to get them from somewhere. So Argentina is up front, and then specifically Indonesia. We've also signed agreements there for the small amounts of nickel and cobalt that we'll use. You may have seen a lot of controversy about nickel and cobalt being mined out of Africa. We don't want to be a part of that. We chose a much more stable location for that. So until we're able to bring those materials forward from our own local for local, which we strongly believe in, we have to bring them from offshore. And to speak to the local for local, any construction that happens will be a local source. Any manufacturing support, whether we're buying machinery or using outside resources, it would be local support. Clearly, we have some proprietary machinery, some proprietary processes that we have to follow. And we will bring a large portion of the machinery from our manufacturers in Germany, Japan, and China. But we will use as much local resource as possible. So I don't think it's anything about a Chinese domination. Again, it's an international publicly held company. It is not a Chinese company. It is, the board of directors is directly German, if I may. So I think that we're paying a lot of attention to the value chain. And that's one reason I'm in the battery show this week, is to talk to more North American companies.
I understand. I appreciate that. I don't understand how.
Representative Schutte, do you have another question?
I do. So what would happen to this project and this investment if China invades Taiwan next year?
I'll leave that to the politicians to answer. I don't know how to answer that question.
Thank you. And we're moving on to Representative Menser.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation today. I just have a question about the sustainable energy that consumers' energy is going to make available and you're going to be able to use at your plant. What does that involve, and you know, what are you developing?
So Randy, do we have Patrick in the room?
We do. I don't know if he's ready to speak to that. Chuck, if you want to speak to the demand on it, and then maybe see if Patrick wants to speak.
So the demand of energy, people maybe don't realize it takes an awful lot of energy to make energy. So we will demand roughly 200 megawatts of service every year. And that's achievable because there's also, when you looked at the map, there is currently a substation less than a mile away. So we will not be interrupting a lot of people's farmyards or anything, but we'll be bringing power in and having our own substation in sight. And then as far as the generation of that energy, I would ask Consumers Power to maybe discuss that.
Thank you. Representative Skaggs?
Thank you, Chair, and I do promise there'll be a question here at the end. Thank you so much to Randy, Chuck, Bill, Jim for the presentation. Really appreciate it. Yesterday, I read an important research from the Environmental Defense Fund about the amount of investment that was going into the electric vehicle sector. $120 billion in the United States of America. States are taking advantage of increases in revenue and federal funding to move into this sector. And we're in a competition with those handful of states: Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Nevada. Those are the other 5 top states for electric vehicle investments. Each one of them is trying to steal our automotive industry. The building of the most complex mass consumer machine that humans have ever built. And they are looking for weakness so they can take it from us. Something that generations of Michiganders have built. We have to win this competition for the engineering jobs that will come, the working jobs that will come, the entrepreneurs and the pizza shops, for the supply chain and the construction. This is an extraordinary, serious moment, and it calls for us to govern seriously, to put aside rhetoric, to put aside foreign policy hypotheticals, and do what is right for Michigan, for Michiganders, and for our future. For the father that Jim mentioned, and for his children. Those kids and their kids are going to ask us, when we're long done here in Lansing, they're either going to thank us for the actions that we took here over the past year and a half, that we're taking here today, and that we'll take in the next year and a half, or they will ask us why we didn't do enough to save Michigan's auto industry. So you're part of this vital supply chain, want to be part of this vital supply chain. What automakers will you be supplying these products to?
So thank you so much for that very insightful conversation. It's good to hear that a lot of people see it the same way we do. As far as our customers, we have multiple ESS customers, as I mentioned, that are about 40% of our business supply currently to, we've been supplying for the last 2 months to Rivian. Then we also have contracts awaiting the confirmation of our localization. Because what you see is a lot of the customers are not willing to bring in imported product. So until you are certified that you are going to be in the United States, they will not sign up for a conclusion. So I suffice to say, of that 40 gigawatt hours that I've mentioned that we're going to supply, we already have a book of business to consume all of it. But I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty yet to say who those customers are because we're not ready to disclose.
But they would be American customers.
Yes, Representative. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Representative Slaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to ask a question. My question is this: as I saw the diagram of how you guys came to this site, thinking about how you were going to get there, it's fascinating to me that there were no green or brownfield sites on there at all. It's only greenfield sites, which obviously then takes away farmland and other kinds of stuff. So I'm just concerned about how did we get there and why did we not include anything that's brownfield rather than just greenfield?
I can start, Representative. So when the search parameters first came out, it was quite sizable. And when you look at the amount of acreage that's required for facilities of this scale, it generally dwarfs what you can find from a brownfield site. The best positioned brownfield site in Greater Grand Rapids is something we call Site 36. It's a former General Motors location. It's about 120 acres. Not enough for the initial phase. And I think you'll find that consistent if you look at, I drove by this morning on Saginaw, former GM site, not sizable enough. This site is not ag land necessarily. There's a business operating on it. It's sort of a gravel, the classic road construction where you're chopping up concrete. That kind of operation is the predominant property use. And so it's slight ag use, but this is not what I would consider prime ag land. I grew up in a farm town. This is not prime ag land.
And maybe just to expand a little bit, when you look at the size of buildings we're talking about, each building is roughly 70 feet tall and roughly 1 million square feet in size. So as Randy said, you have to have enough space for not only the manufacturing facilities, but also the supporting facilities. So as we put in our R&D and engineering team, they have to have their offices. All of the test facilities have to have their offices. So when you look at overall coverage, we're probably at the end of the 2 phases covering roughly 5.5 million square feet. So this is sizable. And to find that site for brownfield, trust me, we've tried because it's a whole lot easier, quicker, faster to convert a current building, but they're just not available for our needs. For the finished goods manufacturing, that's a different story. You can have a shorter building, you can have smaller buildings, and you will see once we finalize our negotiations for those other locations that we are pursuing purchasing brownfields for that application. But for the materials application, it's not lending itself to it.
Thank you. Representative Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I especially really appreciated the comments from our township supervisor because you're there, you know where the people need the jobs, and we really needed to hear that, so thank you. First, a couple comments. As we all know here in this room, the auto companies themselves are moving toward EV manufacturing. The federal government is investing very heavily into the infrastructure needed to support this transition. The multiple-year supply chain issues left us knowing that not building these technologies here in the U.S. leads us to a loss of manufacturing as well as increased inflation. So my question is, what does it mean for the state of Michigan and the United States to have battery manufacturing at such a high level, the investment here in our state?
Well, I can speak to West Michigan. So West Michigan has 40,000 people working in the auto supply side. We don't have a final assembly plant in West Michigan, but we have 40,000 people making, tier 1, tier 2, even tier 3 suppliers. The estimates run about a third reduction in employment because the EV is just a simpler product. It's a simpler product to engineer. It's a simpler product to manufacture. And we see headlines already indicating this change is coming. General Motors sending out a buyout opportunity to virtually every salaried employee in the state of Michigan is a clear signal. They see that the engineering design of their vehicles going forward is going to require less labor. So not only for these types of projects, from my perspective, from an economic development perspective, it's a dual-sided situation. Typically, when you compete, let's take a chip manufacturing plant. I know there's been some opportunities to compete for those here in Michigan. That would be completely new to the state of Michigan. It's a complete win, no downside. The transformation of the auto industry with a third of the jobs potentially at risk, we stand to lose in action. If we take no action, we're going to stand to lose about a third of the employment in that industry, dramatically impacting the state of Michigan, dramatically impacting communities all across the state. Virtually every community in the state of Michigan has a direct connect to the auto industry. We have to find ways to offset that loss and reposition ourselves as leaders in this new economy and this new automotive economy, and that's, to me, why I think this is imperative. I had the opportunity years ago working in Holland, Michigan, to lead the effort to bring Johnson Controls battery plant and an LG battery plant. Representative DeBoer, who I think was city council person at that time. And it's been an incredible opportunity for that region. The addition of new technology, the addition of new employment, the addition to the wage scale, and frankly, recruiting new talent into the region. It's projects like this that are the most exciting within the auto industry. They tend to attract the talent that was referenced earlier, and kind of refresh. I think back to when my father worked in the industry and it was about muscle cars and young engineers wanted to get into that space, kind of lost our way for a little while, and now this is the next wave, and engineering students across the country are getting into, as Dr. Pink said, are getting into this sector. That bodes well for us if we can retain this sector, if we can retain this investment, retain these types of jobs.
And if I may add to that just a little bit, Representative, when I was graduating high school out of DeWitt High School, plug for DeWitt High School, DeWitt Panthers, back in the early 80s, it was the dream to go to work for General Motors. And that's what I did. I was able to go to Lance Community College, get the training I needed to go to work for GM. I did that for quite a number of years and then continued to progress from my profession. I don't see young people today dreaming to go to work for automotive engineering. And that's a darn shame. I think, though, as Randy said, this product, the manufacture of the battery is highly complex. Unlike the actual operation of the vehicle, really, when you go electrification, you remove 3,000 frictional surfaces because you no longer have reciprocating engines, right? But you have a battery technology. Battery technology, motor technology is really what's going to propel this industry. So if we don't pursue those battery and motor manufacturers, we're going to be left behind, like Randy said.
Thank you. We only have time for a really quick question and a quick answer. Representative Cavett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed in one of your slides that Goshen had quite a large operation and I imagine a lot of financial assets in Silicon Valley. Do they have any money in the Silicon Valley Bank, or are they concerned about their financial exposure to perform due to irregularities in the banking crisis right now? Or industry, excuse me.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a really good question I need to ask. To my knowledge, we do not. That operation, to expand on that a little bit, is roughly 50 to 75 people and mainly R&D talent. We also have our sales and support center for our energy storage systems group. And just also to maybe mention the facility in Cleveland, I did not mention this before, we're no stranger to working with the government. We've been working on a DOE grant to help subsidize and standardize batteries as they go into the automotive field. So we're no stranger to being in the United States, but I don't think we had a big account in Silicon Valley Bank. Yeah, so
not worried about your financial exposure at all to perform? All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That appears to be all the questions, and I want to thank all of you for being here today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Next, we'll take up the legislative transfer package 2023-1 and 2023-2, which includes the 3 projects we've heard from in the past few weeks. The Ford project in Marshall, the Our Next Energy project in Van Buren Township, and the Goshen development near Big Rapids. Representative O'Neill moves to approve the legislative transfer request 2023-1 and 2023-2.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion. Well, I would like a motion to amend and to remove pages 1 and 3 from the transfer request.
I'm recognizing Representative Leitner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion to remove pages 1 and pages 3 from the documents that we currently have on the legislative transfer. Support.
Thank you, Representative Leitner. Representative Leitner has made the motion to amend the legislative transfer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
On the motion to amend, Chair Whitwer,
No.
Representatives O'Neill,
No.
Rixey, Hood, Braybeck, Morse, Peary, Steckloff, Weiss, Martis, McKinney?
No.
Menser?
No.
Morgan? No. Price? No. Skaggs?
No.
Snyder? No. Wilson? No. Leitner?
Yes.
Bolin? Yes. Green? Yes. Slaw? Yes. Beeson? Yes. Horton? Yes. Fink? Yes. Cavett?
Yes.
DeBoer?
Yes.
Kuhn?
Yes.
Shutey?
Yes.
Steele? Yes. Madam Chair, you have 12 yeas, 16 nays, no pass. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you very much. Representative O'Neill moves to approve the legislative transfer request 2023-1 and 2023-2. Clerk, please call the roll.
On the motion to approve legislative transfer request 2023-1 and 2023-2, Chair Whitwer?
Yes.
Representatives O'Neill?
Yes.
Rixey? Hood? Braybeck? Morse? Fury? Steckloff? Weiss? Martis? McKinney?
Yes.
Menser?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Yes.
Skaggs? Snyder?
Yes.
Wilson? Leitner?
No.
Bolin?
No.
Green? Slaw? Beeson? Horton? Fink? Cavett?
No.
DeBoer?
No.
Kuhn?
No.
Shutey?
No.
Steele? Madam Chair, you have 16 yeas, 12 nays, no pass. Legislative transfer request 2023-1 and 2023-2 is approved.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further business, the House Appropriations Committee stands adjourned.